NEC 210.25 addresses electrical services in multi-unit buildings. It states that where a common electrical service supplies two or more units, the lighting, receptacles, and appliances in the common area shall be supplied from a disconnecting means located in the common area. This means that the electrical components serving areas shared by multiple tenants or owners must be powered separately from individual unit services. The inspector's interpretation regarding the irrigation pump appears to be valid. The entire property being watered qualifies as a common area. Powering the irrigation pump from a single unit's electrical service creates a dependency that violates the intent of NEC 210.25. This section aims to ensure that common areas are not dependent on the electrical service of any particular unit. This allows access to essential services even if one unit's power is disrupted. Just because previous inspections passed with similar setups does not guarantee future compliance. Inspectors may have different interpretations or may be more strictly enforcing the code. Discounting rent for unit A does not change the electrical dependency. To resolve the issue, there are a few options. Firstly, you could install a separate disconnecting means in the common area. This involves establishing a dedicated circuit from the common area's electrical service to power the pump. Secondly, install a separate irrigation pump. This would allow Unit B to have its own irrigation pump powered by its own electrical service. Thirdly, you could secure a variance or exception from the local authority. This would require requesting an exception from the NEC requirement, justifying the current setup, and demonstrating that it meets all safety and code requirements. Installing a separate disconnecting means in the common area is the most straightforward and compliant solution. This ensures compliance with NEC 210.25 and eliminates the electrical dependency on Unit A. The purpose of NEC 210.25 is to ensure safety and reliability in common areas of multi-unit dwellings. By providing a separate electrical supply for common areas, the code minimizes the risk of disruptions to essential services. For example, imagine a scenario where Unit A's power is disconnected due to non-payment or maintenance. If the irrigation pump is powered by Unit A's service, the entire property's landscaping could suffer. A separate disconnecting means ensures that the irrigation system remains operational regardless of the status of individual unit services. Additionally, NEC 210.25 facilitates easier maintenance and repairs. If the irrigation pump requires servicing, a technician can disconnect the power at the common area disconnecting means without affecting the electrical service to any individual unit. This avoids inconvenience to tenants and simplifies the repair process. In addition to irrigation systems, NEC 210.25 applies to other common area electrical loads such as lighting, security systems, and common area receptacles. All of these loads must be powered by a separate disconnecting means located in the common area. This ensures that these essential services are available to all tenants or owners regardless of the status of individual unit services. When installing a separate disconnecting means for the irrigation pump, it is important to comply with all applicable electrical codes and standards. This includes using appropriately sized conductors, overcurrent protection, and grounding. The disconnecting means should be readily accessible and clearly labeled. The installation should be performed by a qualified electrician. The cost of installing a separate disconnecting means may vary depending on the complexity of the installation and the local labor rates. However, the cost is typically relatively low compared to the potential costs of non-compliance such as fines, delays, and legal liabilities. Furthermore, the cost of non-compliance could be higher if the tenant decides to litigate, as it is a code violation. Securing a variance or exception from the local authority may be an option in some cases, but it is not guaranteed. The process of obtaining a variance can be time-consuming and expensive, and it may require the approval of multiple agencies. Additionally, the local authority may be reluctant to grant a variance if the proposed setup does not meet all applicable safety and code requirements. In summary, NEC 210.25 requires that common area electrical loads in multi-unit dwellings be powered by a separate disconnecting means located in the common area. This ensures safety, reliability, and ease of maintenance. Complying with NEC 210.25 is essential for avoiding fines, delays, and legal liabilities. The most straightforward solution is to install a separate disconnecting means for the irrigation pump. Ignoring the electrical code may cause issues later on. Remember to contact the local authority for clarification. It is important to note that electrical codes are subject to change and vary by jurisdiction. It is always best to consult with a qualified electrician and the local authority to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Ignoring the electrical code could lead to fines, delays, and legal liabilities. It is important to prioritize safety and compliance when designing and installing electrical systems. There are multiple types of disconnecting means. Firstly, there are fuse disconnects. These devices incorporate fuses for overcurrent protection and a handle for disconnecting power. Secondly, there are non-fuse disconnects. These devices only provide a means of disconnecting power and do not include overcurrent protection. Thirdly, there are circuit breakers. These devices provide both overcurrent protection and a means of disconnecting power. When selecting a disconnecting means for the irrigation pump, it is important to consider the amperage rating of the pump motor. The disconnecting means must have an amperage rating that is equal to or greater than the full load amperage of the pump motor. It is also important to consider the voltage rating of the disconnecting means. The disconnecting means must have a voltage rating that is equal to or greater than the voltage of the electrical circuit supplying the pump motor. In addition to selecting the appropriate disconnecting means, it is also important to ensure that the disconnecting means is properly installed. The disconnecting means must be installed in a readily accessible location. The disconnecting means must be clearly labeled to indicate its purpose. The disconnecting means must be grounded in accordance with all applicable electrical codes and standards. The grounding conductor must be sized appropriately for the amperage rating of the circuit. The grounding conductor must be connected to a grounding electrode system that meets the requirements of the electrical code. There are multiple types of grounding electrode systems. Firstly, there are metal underground water pipes. Secondly, there are ground rings. Thirdly, there are rod electrodes. Fourthly, there are plate electrodes. The selection of the appropriate grounding electrode system depends on the specific site conditions. The electrical code specifies the minimum requirements for grounding electrode systems. In addition to grounding, it is also important to ensure that the electrical circuit supplying the irrigation pump is properly protected against overcurrent. Overcurrent protection can be provided by fuses or circuit breakers. The overcurrent protection device must be sized appropriately for the amperage rating of the circuit. The overcurrent protection device must be installed in a readily accessible location. The overcurrent protection device must be clearly labeled to indicate its purpose. The electrical code specifies the maximum allowable overcurrent protection for various types of conductors. It is important to consult the electrical code to determine the appropriate overcurrent protection for the circuit supplying the irrigation pump. In addition to overcurrent protection and grounding, it is also important to ensure that the electrical wiring is properly installed and protected. The electrical wiring must be installed in accordance with all applicable electrical codes and standards. The electrical wiring must be protected from physical damage. The electrical wiring must be protected from moisture. The electrical wiring must be properly supported. The electrical code specifies the types of wiring methods that are permitted for various applications. It is important to consult the electrical code to determine the appropriate wiring method for the circuit supplying the irrigation pump. When installing electrical wiring outdoors, it is important to use wiring that is rated for outdoor use. Outdoor rated wiring is designed to withstand the effects of sunlight, moisture, and temperature extremes. The electrical code specifies the types of wiring that are permitted for outdoor use. In addition to using outdoor rated wiring, it is also important to protect the wiring from physical damage. This can be accomplished by installing the wiring in conduit or by using armored cable. Conduit and armored cable provide a physical barrier that protects the wiring from impact and abrasion. The electrical code specifies the types of conduit and armored cable that are permitted for various applications. It is important to consult the electrical code to determine the appropriate type of conduit or armored cable for the circuit supplying the irrigation pump. When installing electrical wiring underground, it is important to use wiring that is rated for underground use. Underground rated wiring is designed to withstand the effects of moisture and soil chemicals. The electrical code specifies the types of wiring that are permitted for underground use. In addition to using underground rated wiring, it is also important to protect the wiring from physical damage. This can be accomplished by installing the wiring in conduit or by burying the wiring at a sufficient depth. The electrical code specifies the minimum depth at which electrical wiring must be buried. It is important to consult the electrical code to determine the appropriate burial depth for the circuit supplying the irrigation pump. When installing electrical equipment outdoors, it is important to use equipment that is rated for outdoor use. Outdoor rated equipment is designed to withstand the effects of sunlight, moisture, and temperature extremes. The electrical code specifies the types of equipment that are permitted for outdoor use. In addition to using outdoor rated equipment, it is also important to protect the equipment from physical damage. This can be accomplished by installing the equipment in a weatherproof enclosure. Weatherproof enclosures provide a physical barrier that protects the equipment from impact and abrasion. The electrical code specifies the types of weatherproof enclosures that are permitted for various applications. It is important to consult the electrical code to determine the appropriate type of weatherproof enclosure for the equipment used in the circuit supplying the irrigation pump. When working with electrical equipment, it is important to follow all safety precautions. Always disconnect the power before working on any electrical equipment. Use insulated tools. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves and safety glasses. Be aware of the potential hazards of electricity and take steps to avoid them. If you are not qualified to work on electrical equipment, hire a qualified electrician. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. By following these safety precautions and consulting the electrical code, you can ensure that the electrical system supplying the irrigation pump is safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable codes and standards. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a set of standards established in the United States for safe electrical installation. Firstly, Chapter 1 covers general information. Secondly, Chapter 2 covers wiring and protection. Thirdly, Chapter 3 covers wiring methods and materials. Fourthly, Chapter 4 covers equipment for general use. Fifthly, Chapter 5 covers special occupancies. Sixthly, Chapter 6 covers special equipment. Seventh, Chapter 7 covers special conditions. Eighth, Chapter 8 covers communications systems. And ninth, Chapter 9 covers tables. The NEC is updated every 3 years, so it is important to use the latest edition. The NEC is not a law, but it is often adopted by state and local governments as part of their building codes. The NEC is a comprehensive document that covers all aspects of electrical installation. It is important to consult the NEC when designing and installing electrical systems. If you are not familiar with the NEC, hire a qualified electrician. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. It is important to be aware of the different types of electrical hazards. Firstly, there is electric shock. Secondly, there is electric arc. Thirdly, there is fire. Fourthly, there is explosion. Electric shock occurs when a person comes into contact with an energized electrical conductor. Electric shock can cause muscle contractions, burns, and even death. Electric arc is a high-temperature discharge of electricity through the air. Electric arc can cause burns, blindness, and even death. Electrical fires are caused by overheating electrical equipment or faulty wiring. Electrical fires can spread quickly and cause significant damage. Electrical explosions are caused by the ignition of flammable gases or vapors by an electrical spark. Electrical explosions can cause serious injuries and death. To protect yourself from electrical hazards, follow these safety precautions. Always disconnect the power before working on any electrical equipment. Use insulated tools. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves and safety glasses. Be aware of the potential hazards of electricity and take steps to avoid them. If you are not qualified to work on electrical equipment, hire a qualified electrician. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. Additionally, local regulations and ordinances may have specific requirements beyond the NEC. Be sure to consult with the local building department or a qualified electrical inspector to ensure full compliance. Proper permitting and inspections are crucial to verifying the safety and code compliance of electrical installations.